Oh, happy Christmas Kwanzaa, as Mr. E would say. You know what I mean? We're celebrating all the holidays tonight. We're celebrating Christmas, of course. We're celebrating Hanukkah a little late, and we're celebrating Kwanzaa a day early. But we are here. I got Rabbi Adam Meir with me live tonight. I go by Digital Crates, and together we are representing for rappers and rabbis. I'm going to play a short video really quick that explains a little bit more about us. And then we're going to get into our special topic for tonight. Right off top, we're going to get into it. Uh, I'll give you guys a few minutes to maybe guess what the special topic is. So check out this video, and then you'll see the special topic in a couple minutes.
May Hashem gift us with the one.
Welcome, my people, please sit where you want, sit where you want, sit where you want. And eye on inside and two eyes to the front, eyes to the front, eyes to the front. Your spirit alive, the Shekhinah, she's home, Shekhinah, she's home, Shekhinah, she's home. So feel out the vibe to feel it is flow, to feel it is flow, to feel it is flow. Hip hop on our plane, now get ready, let's go. The didgeridoo and the shofar will blow. The rhythm is given, just follow the flow. Community singing my toe, my toe.
That's right, classic Jewish Shabbat prayers, ancient to contemporary, remixed with hip-hop beats and bars. But that's not all. In Rappers and Rabbis Beat Knesset, we plumb the depths of hip-hop to elevate our experience, specifically with the concept of the Cypher. As hip-hop Rebbe, Purple, explains.
A hip-hop cypher is when the community gathers in a circle-like formation where everyone is participating, no one is spectating. What's happening in the cypher is individuals are demonstrating their most creative and authentic self-expression. That could be beatboxing, it could be dance moves, it could be rapping, both written or improv, which we call freestyle. The cypher is about peace, it's about love, and it's the hip-hop community way.
We offer a professional development opportunity for leaders to work with us and our little prayer book to make sure the Cypher pops off at our Hip Hop Shabbat services to never be forgotten. All over your community.
Prepare for prayer. Hebra, come grab a chair. Congregation for community. Mr. Yaakov for mayor.
Shout out to Rappers and Rabbis.
Hip Hop Shabbat
was awesome.
I really liked that. I think it was very catchy, especially with the Shema.
It really was honestly a magical experience because it felt like heavenly hip hop vibe.
I loved it. I love the energy. I love the message behind it.
So yeah, that is an introduction to what we are and what we do as a fellowship, which is bring together the worlds of Judaism and hip hop, and we do that with an emphasis on, spirituality and health, healthiness, mental health, physical health, spiritual awareness, and oneness. Hip hop is such like global art form that there's so many parallels to it, to Judaism and or any religion. Hip hop in it of itself is kind of a religion. It is a celebration of culture, which I think at the end of the day is what religion kind of stands for, is a celebration of your heritage and of your culture, spiritually speaking. And who better to represent, religious culture than the Big J himself? You know what I mean? The Big J. Just about every rapper wears the chain with his face on it. If you think about it, it's probably the most famous rapper chain in existence. Of course, we're talking about the Big JC. We're going to talk about Jesus Christ tonight. Jesus, is pretty much like the central figure of the world's largest religion. And what's so unbelievably amazing, confounding, confusing, but really just kind of amazing in all is that Jesus himself was Jewish. So his teachings, as well as his learnings in his era, which is in the first century, really has stood the test of time, all the way to 2020, where your favorite rapper is probably wearing a Jesus face on his chain around his neck. It's pretty amazing. I don't know, Rabbi, if you have any thoughts on Jesus, and if you think this is a good topic for tonight, holler if you hear me.
Yeah, well, it's definitely what's called Inyana de Yoma. That's the deal of the day, um, and I am not an expert on his life, nor on his teachings.
Hmm.
So this
So
is a little
you're
bit,
gonna learn something tonight.
yeah, yeah. That's not my. I'm happy to learn, but it's not my area of expertise. Um, what I do know is that there are and from what I have learned is the foundations, the kind of the core values of of peace and of love, and of kind of friendship and community are things that are very central and shared,
Yeah,
um, throughout Judaism and Christianity and most cultures in the world,
yeah.
um, and and uh, and so long as that stays at the center, then good things come out of it. That's what I believe.
Yeah, there's so many parallels. If you think about it, Jesus had 12 disciples, just as there are 12 tribes of Israel, um, just as there are 12 months in a year. There's so many parallels and also interesting numerology about Jesus that is rampant throughout hip hop. So many people have rapped about Jesus. One of the most famous lines, Nas raps about the age that Jesus died, age 33. And he starts breaking down the math, Nas, in this song. It's really incredible. And there's just even KRS-One, who we've talked about, definitely talks about Jesus in a bunch of his songs. And it's just, Jay-Z, one of the most famous rappers basically ever. Jay-Z also calls himself Hove, Hov, just like Hova, Jehovah. I mean, it's just like hip hop and Jesus and Judaism. There's so many parallels between the two. But we are just going to talk about Jesus for a little bit. I've done my research over the years. I really especially in the spirit of Christmas. I'm a firm believer in miracles and in magic in the world. We talked about Harry Houdini a couple weeks ago,
That's right.
and we talked about the magic that's found in the Torah, whether it was exile, in the parting of the Red Sea, striking the stone and water comes out. I mean, there's the burning bush. I mean, there's so much magic. We could go on and on. You know what I mean? Even the miracle of Hanukkah itself, how the oil lasted, kept the candles burning for 8 days, 8 nights. I mean, there is so much magic, and I think we called it enchantment
Yeah.
a couple weeks ago. There's so much enchantment in the Torah and the Bible itself, and I think Jesus as a character stands for all that enchantment. This is such a mythical, magical, mysterious figure in religious history. I mean, probably the biggest, outside of God, of course. And it's there's in Judaism we have some of the big ones. Obviously, is Abraham. We talk about Abraham a lot. We talk about Moses a lot. We talk about David, Solomon. We have our founding fathers, if you will, of Judaism. And in Christianity, there's really none bigger than Jesus, Mary, and Joseph, as well as the 12 disciples. I do believe there's a lot of interconnectivity between these religions, and that's what makes world religion such like a magical study. There's reason why just about every university around the world has a world religious study because there's just so much depth to it. But we're going to bring it back to Jesus. Let's just talk a little bit. I'm going to spit some facts for you, and then maybe
All
you can
right.
give me maybe you can make some sense of all of it. So Jesus was Jewish, born to Mary, who was wife of Joseph. And obviously, we know a lot about Joseph. There's a lot of stories about Joseph. The Gospels of Matthew and Luke in the New Testament offer two accounts of his genealogy. Matthew traces Jesus' ancestry directly to Abraham and through David, and Luke traces Jesus' ancestry through Adam all the way to God. And as we know, that's really just one family line. I remember reading a joke when I was younger that it was like every Jewish person's 25th grandfather or great grandfather is Abraham. You know, that we're basically all related as we are the chosen people. So it's kind of comforting to think that Jesus was part of that tribe. He was a first century Jewish preacher and religious leader. Some modern Jewish thinkers, starting in the 18th century, uh, they basically speculated that historical Jesus may have been closer to Judaism than any of the Gospels or traditional Jewish accounts would indicate. So studies have shown that he was probably more of a devout follower of Judaism than we even imagined,
Yeah.
or is written in the Bible. Um, he's certainly a subject that influenced by the traditions of Israel. There's really no doubt about that. But what forms those traditions came to him in Galilee at the beginning of the first century. He would have been known of the temple in Jerusalem, and probably, as traditions may have reported, have actually gone to Jerusalem for major pilgrimage festivals. Um, he would have known of the rituals of the temple and their atoning significance. So imagine in that time that how great the first temple must have been. Imagine one great
Second temple.
first temple,
Second
and the
temple.
fact that and the fact that Jesus may have actually made pilgrimages there. He would have known of the rituals of the temple, and he would have celebrated Passover, assumingly as depicted in the famous painting of the Last Supper. Um, his story is kind of embedded in the divine deliverance of the Passover story, which to the Jews is just incredibly powerful. I mean, it is one of the most celebrated moments of the Jewish calendar, is that of Passover. So the fact that Jesus himself would have been someone who took the Passover rituals, close to heart is pretty amazing and comforting to know. Um,
Yeah.
listen,
When I
yeah,
was
yeah, go
growing
for
up,
it.
I was growing up in Connecticut, and there was a very nice conservative shul, and there was for like 2 or 3 years there was this devout Christian who he was connected somehow. I don't know exactly how, but he found the rabbi and said like, I want to come to your services every week.
Hmm.
Now, I'm not interested in Judaism. I want to learn about Judaism because that's what Jesus did. And this guy showed up, when Jews get to like if synagogue starts at 9, Jews show up at like 9:30 or 10. He showed up at 9 o'clock on the dot
Yeah, on
every
Hi
time.
there.
single week. He was there first, and he like spent years, coming to services with us. Got to know him pretty well. And he's like, yeah, he's like, he wanted to know, like, let me learn how Jesus would have prayed. And
Mm,
that was
that's
kind of what he
incredible.
was there. Yeah.
So the question is, was Jesus a Jew? Of course, Jesus was a Jew. He was born of a Jewish mother in a Jewish part of the world. All of his friends, associates, colleagues, disciples, all of them were Jews. He regularly worshiped in Jewish communal worship in what we now call synagogues. He preached from Jewish texts, from the Bible, from the Torah. He celebrated the Jewish festivals, as we've seen depicted in the Last Supper. He went on pilgrimage to the Jewish temple in Jerusalem, where he was under the authority of the high priests. And he lived, was born, and died, and taught and learned as a Jew. I mean, it's pretty incredible. And here we are now, thousands of years later, still in awe, in reverence of more of his daily life practices, which today are considered to be miracles. And he was, an educator, he was a healer. He was not really that much different from, let's say, Harry Houdini, as we talked about recently, is he was kind of like a central figure of the times, for the times, and how similar in a way in how he was going around and teaching and performing miracles. That's not really very different from a rapper, a famous rapper these days who's on stages performing what we call lyrical miracles. We could say some of these famous rappers of today are, performing and teaching and doing it with lyrical anomalies, if you will. It's similar to how Houdini was teaching about the Jewish tradition in forms of magic, his escapism, his escape art. And it's amazing that in different eras of culture, whether it be popular culture, religious culture, spiritual culture, that we have these thought leaders and educators. And since it's Christmas, we're here today to talk about Jesus. We also have Matt Barr. We have Matt Barr in the building. We got Mr. Bible Raps himself. I think out of the three of us, you probably know a lot more about these Bible stories, these legends that we talk about in religion. You have a video that you did about Joseph, and it's we're talking about you know how these stories passed on through the ages. And one way that we do it as a fellowship is through music. We recreate Jewish prayers and songs using hip hop as an art form. So Matt, I don't know if you want to chime in and talk about maybe what passing on culture through music, how that became a part of your life, but also in the same token, like what does Jesus mean to you as a modern Jew, which is kind of an interesting question.
It is an interesting question. Wow, we just get right into the thick of it. Jump right on.
Yeah,
What does Jesus
yeah,
mean to you,
yeah,
Jew?
yeah.
Well, I think there's a recognition. Well, first of all, that was Hashem who just made the green screen collapse on me. So maybe I shouldn't get too intimate about this.
Yeah.
Asking that question, the first thing with I don't know the Bible stories better than Adam. I certainly know Christianity better than Adam. As I studied it in philosophy of religion, my favorite philosopher is Nietzsche, who called himself the anti-Christian, the Antichrist. But he thought Jesus was the man. And so when you ask me, what do you as a Jew think of Jesus? There's that question. I think of that question and how terrifying that question has been historically for Jews, and how many have been killed or oppressed because of answering that question incorrectly. And so there's that element of it, that it's very sad at the beginning. Jews and people and the Jews who followed Jesus, it wasn't necessarily that you had to be completely antagonistic, one or the other, or you could be cool with the other. And there's a lot of interesting things in the New Testament, like where Jesus's brothers, saying to Paul, Paul, why are you letting these non-Jews eat with us? We have kosher food. They don't have kosher food, And so even within the disciples, there's a tension of how away from Judaism are we going to become, and how much is this going to be about Jesus being God versus following the teachings of Jesus. So my understanding is a lot of Christianity, because it is wrapped up in Jesus as a Jew and coming from the Jewish tradition, is both there's a strain of it that's celebrating that and learning from the richness of Judaism and adding their own spice. But there's some of that really wants to say we're the new elected, and therefore the old elected, the old chosen people, have to somehow be minimized. Because it's true, the Bible's true. It's a hard circumstance when you're coming along as a new religion, and it's like all this huge Hebrew Bible and all the story of the Jews is true. However, there's now a new chapter that says they didn't do it well enough. Now we got the new. We're the new. Out with the old. They're essentially Cain, and we're Abel. We're the elected, and they're the dejected.
Now, before you go any further, how similar is that in hip hop to the different eras of hip hop culture? You had the 80s and 90s that was strictly about the elements, and then it got commercialized, And then, there was like all the new people in the 90s and 2000s are like, okay, we're going to do it better.
Right.
And now we're kind of in like the third era of hip hop where they're trying to outdo the two generations before them. So I just
Right.
thought that was interesting from what you were saying.
Yeah, I hear you. There's an element of Christianity want to make it, Catholicism used to mean universalism.
Mm,
People don't connect it with that, but it's like everyone can make it into heaven now. Like
yeah,
the Jews were the chosen people, and they had a special relationship with the one God, the true God. And then Jesus came along, and this whole idea of the sin, which he has allowed it so everyone can get in on this chosenness, right?
yeah,
And then, so I appreciate that, and I think even the Jewish sages, most of the time speaking under some kind of oppression from Christianity, were saying what Christianity has done for spreading the monotheistic religion is notable and has
yeah.
advanced, Hashem's name across the world. The Ramban says this,
Yeah.
along with some of the baggage and some of the, terror that came along with that for the Jewish people. I would say that when speaking of Jesus, there has been a kind of a new attempt, or I think it wasn't until 1962 when Abraham Joshua Heschel, who actually is going to be a primary thinker for our fellowship coming up, who I've been restudying, who really got me into Judaism from the get, went to the Pope and said, because the standard line for Catholicism was, if you don't accept Jesus as your savior and your God, you go to hell.
Mm.
That was normative Catholicism. It was the law. And Heschel went to the Pope in 1962 and said, I'd rather die in Auschwitz than accept Jesus, because my God is Hashem. So are you going to send me to Auschwitz? Like, I choose Auschwitz over what you're giving my choice. And it was right when like the horrors of the Holocaust were coming out, right? As seeing kind of the Holocaust as an endpoint of this kind of anti-Semitism that European Christendom had been boiling for a good 1800 years. And so then the Pope was like, okay, kind of remade the law that you don't have to accept Jesus. There's other ways to get into heaven or into the afterlife than accepting Jesus as your one savior. It is a way, but not the only way. So it suddenly became less dogmatic in that regard. But
Yep.
I think so. There's always like a difficulty for me whether I talk about Jesus's teachings, which I think are great. He's a great rabbi. I think most Jews take pride in Jesus.
Yeah.
But it's just kind of, and Nietzsche, the way Nietzsche breaks it down is the first Christian was not Jesus. The first Christian was St. Paul. Because out of all the disciples, he was the only one who spoke Greek, meaning all the other disciples were part of the Jewish world. They thought in Hebrew and in Aramaic. They wanted to keep it kosher. They wanted to keep it a very Jewish, they wanted to keep the law and not throw away that. Whereas Paul came along and he's from the Greek world and kind of like into Plato, into these Greek philosophy that is universalism. Greek is like, Greek had this kind of superiority complex, like we found the one right culture and everyone should be like us. That's why Hanukkah is about like, no, we're not gonna, it's a war. We had the war to not lose our culture, not to necessarily to save our lives, but to save our culture. And so there's always this discussion with Jesus of like wanting to really speak on the glory and the beauty of Jesus as a teacher, but at the same time getting in, which is a very positive space. And then there's a space which is more rife with controversy when speaking with my Christian friends of the theology of Christianity. And where I have to draw a line is, and my best friend growing up was a good Christian guy, but it was a weird time when he's like, yeah, I think you're going to hell. You know what I mean? Or like, I grew up in Iowa City, Iowa, and I was the only Jewish person at this like fun, it was in junior high, like social get together group, and it was at a church. and the guy who was teaching, like most of the time was playing around, doing whatever, but there were like little Bible moments, and this guy was speaking to the 30 of us and teaching about Christianity and the Bible, and was like, and if you don't accept Jesus Christ as your savior, you're going to spend eternity in absolute suffering. And like, I was like, you know,
yeah,
like
that's
the record scratch.
Yeah.
I was like, I said almost like viscerally, like spontaneously, I was like, you all believe that? You know, it was like a real moment in my like identity. I was like, that, like, and he was like, well, I believe that, you know, and I was like, so I said to all my friends, like, send me a postcard. But I had developed enough identity and worldliness to be like, in my opinion, the absurdity of that dogmatism, where of believing if someone doesn't believe what in your God, that they are destined for hell. I think that only can lead to bad things. Because if I think you creates need to change your mind about something in order for your afterlife to be in bliss, for your the rest of your eternity for being bliss versus being an absolute torture, I will put a gun to your head and I will torture you until you believe it. It's the only moral right thing to do. So point being is, you can talk about the teaching of Jesus, and this is the way I go. And I think this is the way a lot of secular people, you can talk about the teaching of Jesus, which is really about the expansion of love. You know, like really blowing up what love can be for human and other humans. And then the theology of Christianity, which is not necessarily what Jesus was about, but rather something that came and was canonized 300 years later. This idea. So I thought about it a lot because I did grow up in a basically all Christian environment, and that was what the normal kind of get down was. But I was learning about Judaism, so I had like a real different perspective. And so I have a great appreciation for Jesus's teachings and what he's added to the world in terms of, you know, his philosophies of love and community. Yet at the same time, it's, you know, I think it's worthwhile to not whitewash Christianity's connection to anti-Semitism over the past 2,000 years, and those are both, you know, things worth to talk about and have, you know, a lot of history to it.
Yeah, I think a lot of the history has been quote unquote glorified. Even the depiction of that era. I remember something that stuck with me to this day. When I visited Israel on our tour, we were taken to where supposedly the Last Supper took place. And I remember thinking like, oh, this isn't some castle. This isn't like some palatial estate. It was like, this is kind of like the hood, you know what I mean? Like this is kind of, it was like the trap, you know what I mean? Like that we talk about in hip hop. So Adam, you're definitely more of the three of us an expert on Israel. Maybe you could talk about that location in itself and how we've negatively glorified history. It's just crazy.
Yeah, well, I mean, yes, Jesus is said to be from Nazareth, right? In Hebrew, Notzarat, which is in the Galilee. It's kind of the mountains up to the west of the Sea of Galilee. Here's my dog. And yeah, it's a beautiful, you know, it's a beautiful hilly area up in the, you know, it's nice and warm if you're gonna walk from Nazareth down to Jerusalem. You know, it'd probably take, you know, a week or so back in the day as how they would travel. You know, today it's 2 or 3 hours in the car. But they didn't have the cars there. And the you know, they would have been living in, you know, pretty small, you know, stone homes that would be kind of built in, you know, up and down the hillsides, as it were. A lot of you know, the agriculture there. There's a lot of fruit trees. You know, it's like it's a very rich agricultural place. It's, you know, and a beautiful place to live. You know, so yeah, so he would walk down to the Sea of Galilee, take a walk across the sea, because he could walk on water. um, and to this day, if you go to Israel right now, you'll see on the Sea of Galilee there's churches around the side, and synagogues, right? So like Tiberias is on the southern point of it, and if you go up the coast on the west coast, you get to some of the monasteries that are up there. And Christians make their way there, thousands and thousands of every single year to go and dip in the water of the Sea of Galilee and go to the to the parts of the Jordan River where Jesus went in. So right there's like trips of the pilgrimage through the areas where he was walking in the northern region of Israel. And these days in Israel, it's a very kind of peaceful coexistence of Jews and Christians, and there's many Christian Arabs who live in the northern parts of Israel, and they are for the most part, as far as I know, but they're Israeli citizens, and it's just like a big, it's a big part of the Israeli population.
Mm-hmm. I think people don't appreciate the diversity of Israel. They kind of certain groups think of them as European people that like showed up there in the mid 40s, where like I remember Amari Stoudemire. Two comments to bring it back to hip hop. Amari Stoudemire, the NBA basketball player, who's the Jewish guy, black guy, was on.
I didn't know that. I'm learning tonight too. That's great.
And he was on Nori on Drink Champs, and he was like, "Oh yeah, I was there," and he's like, "Oh," Nori's like, "You must be the only black person in Israel," because also Nori loves to play the ignorant, whether he is ignorant or not. He loves to play that. So and Amari's like, "What?" He's like, "Oh, there are black people in Israel?" It's like, bro, there's black people all over Israel, and like when you go there, like, people don't. It is the skin color is from whitest of white to blackest of black, and the Jewish people as well. So
right, the Jews are black. But most of the black people in Israel are Ethiopian. There's a pretty big Sudanese and Eritrean population in Israel, but that's right. So it's like mostly East African descendants are the black Jews, and then there's a lot of Arab, Middle Eastern people there, Jews and non-Jews. Like the browner colors are going to be like Persian and Afghani Jews and all that, and you have all of the North African Jews. It's like a lot
and geographically, we're not talking about a huge place.
I know.
It's so like New Jersey. When I was there, I was very impressed at the diversification in terms of the ratio of the size of the actual land. I mean, it's incredible.
Right. One of the things that irks me when people compare Zionism to, like, it's just another form of colonialization, Western colonialization. It's like, you want to look at the shades of the color who voted for Netanyahu. We're talking somewhere between Middle East and African. Like, it's just not white people, and it's hard for people to. We in American, most for the majority of our history, it's changing a lot now, but was Ashkenazi Jews.
I mean, one would have to think, all joking aside, that Jesus probably looked more like Bob Marley than he did, the baby angel that we kind of, blue-eyed angel that we know him as.
Right. Because many, most probably American Jews come from European descent, and our color has been whitened through the centuries, And that's not to say there aren't European Jews in Israel. There are, and much of the original, like 1948, Jews there, many of them, most of them were European. But yeah, it's a very diverse country within the Jewish people and outside of the Jewish people as well. Like Israel is home to Christian Arabs and Muslim Arabs and Druze and Bedouins and and there's also Baha'i, and that's a religious, not another.
It's mind blowing to me that one figure in history could be so unifying, but also yet so polarizing at the same time.
Yeah.
I mean, it's absolutely mind blowing, and there's no doubt about it. In the spirit of the holidays, we had to kind of get into it tonight. I know this was kind of deep, so I want to lighten the mood a little bit. This is Rappers and Rabbis. We are thought leaders. We're also musicians. So I'm going to play a brand new song from Mr. E, one of the members of our fellowship and regional directors. This new song he dropped, it's everything that we've been talking about. There's so much spiritually and religiously that's similar between Hanukkah, Christmas, and Kwanzaa. And he lays it all out in this song. So let's check it out. Some new music from Mr. E.
Beautiful.
Happy holidays,
Mr. E,
ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, whatever it is that you celebrate. Sleigh bells rocking, candy canes, stockings, Santa coming down the chimney, gifts he be dropping, elves on the shelves, they be popping and locking. The dreidel never stopping, sleigh bells rocking, candy canes, stockings, Santa coming down the chimney, gifts he be dropping, elves on the shelves, they be popping and locking. The dreidel never stopping. Time to come together for the holiday season. Feel it in your spirit no matter what you believe in. Happy Christmas, Hanukkah, Kwanzaa, whether Santa hat or a kufi or a yarmulke. Feast with fam, whether ham, collard greens or latkes, bruh. Happy holidays, really holy days. Thank you, God, give all the praise. We'll start with Kwanzaa, 7 nights and 7 days. We got Umoja, Ujama, and Ujima. That's the Pan-African, Nasarima dreamer. Colors green, black, and red. Festivities and getting fed. Next we go to Hanukkah, festival of lights. 8 crazy days and 8 crazy nights. Each day, light a candle from menorah. Spin a little dreidel, learn a little Torah. Gather around the table and we'll all dance the horror. Latkes, Manischewitz, wine, grab a glass and pour it up. Merry Christmas. Hope you get everything up on your wish list. But it's not about the presents, it's more about your essence. Shine light into the world, I believe that is the message. Hopefully it snows and there's a blizzard filled with blessings. Sleigh bells rocking, candy canes, stockings, Santa coming down the chimney, gifts he be dropping, elves on the shelves, they be popping and locking. What? The dreidel never stopping.
Yeah, shout out to Mr. E. I mean, that's a holiday anthem right there.
It's for real.
And it's just amazing how wonderful this time of year is. It inspires more unity than polarization. That's for sure. And I think it was last year where like Hanukkah and Christmas kind of fell on like the same couple days, and it's just amazing to see the moral acceptance of all these different cultures in this modern era, especially in hip hop. Hip hop too is all about love. Matt, before you jumped in, we were talking about there's probably a good chance that your favorite rapper has a Jesus piece on his chain. Wears the face of Jesus. Out of any chain that any rapper has ever worn, it's probably Jesus is the most popular.
Right, sure.
Yeah, it's really it's just really amazing.
I got a bar for that.
Yeah, let's go. What you got?
Clever you'd expect it. Round my neck there is no necklace, but your Jesus pieces bless me like my rhymes or sneezes. Check this, Haju. What'd he say? Haju. What'd she say? This cracker's snapping like I'm hoarse. I heard my hine. I think I'm Araham. Peace on you. Assalam.
Yeah, it's incredible. So we just we got some love from the chat right here, saying this is a great piece. This is why we do what we do. It's to kind of spread a little bit more unity and love. And I'd be remiss if I didn't promote our own album, Rappers and Rabbis. We have an album online now that is remixed prayers and songs of the Jewish faith in the hip hop tradition. That's kind of the way I like to describe it. And we do have an upcoming second round of our fellowship. So while I load up our last song for the evening, Matt, I don't know if you want to jump in and talk about what we got coming up in the next couple months.
Right on. Yeah, so we have another fellowship, and much of what's happened over the past year with Rappers and Rabbis came out of the first fellowship, which is a group of about 12 to 15 people who meet for 2 to 3 hours a week online over a couple months. And we create music together. We study holy text together. We learn together. We learn from one another together. There's 2 different tracks. You can study ethics, and so you'd come and we'd meet once a week, and we'd pick a principle, a virtue like compassion or discipline, and then you learn what hip hop has to say about the subject, and Judaism has to say about the subject. Our faculty includes rabbis of hip hop and rabbis of Judaism, and so we learn about that together. And then we also, part of our faculty are great producers, including Crates. So Crates will throw out some beats that might have remixed like some biblical phrase or something that's on the subject of the virtue, and then we'll write to it. And then we try to kind of create some music around the virtue we've been studying about. And that's for kind of MCs or producers who also want to learn a little bit more about ethics, and then how to apply ethics to develop yourself to become, better at being you, which especially these days with the quarantine, the community for me was as important as the creation that I got to do, to be around like brilliant other creators. And you can see by our album that we actually put out a lot of stuff. We got a lot more in the bag, but when so much of our community now has been kind of put into uncertainty and suspended due to COVID, which also seems to be extending to, who knows when. It was really comforting to have this like-minded individuals that came to be like, that was always there every week. And it was part therapy, it was part fun, so we invite anybody interested in kind of developing themselves with a community who's trying to develop themselves through hip hop and Judaism to join the fellowship. And then the other track is for song leaders, people who are like cantors who lead the songs of the Jewish prayers. They want to come and learn about hip hop, maybe even apply some elements of hip hop if they feel comfortable to what they're doing. But it's just an opportunity for people who are prayer leaders to see and learn from what we do when we lead a prayer service with hip hop, and hopefully, they can get something out of that.
All right, so one of the best ways we've done that, put these worlds together, is through making music together. We've been blessed, whether it was in person or via email. We've really made some incredible music. We have an album online now on all platforms, and one of the songs that's on there that I want to close out tonight's program with is Oseh Shalom. Oseh Shalom is a well-known Hebrew prayer. It is recited in several different places during a typical Shabbat and Havdallah service. It is a prayer for peace and wholeness, but it most poignantly concludes the mourner's Kaddish, a prayer that is used for remembrance of those who had passed or those who are in need. And I think that, as we get to the holidays and now to the end of the year, it's always important to remember. You got to remember those that came before us to pave a way, whether it was people like Jesus or people like Jay-Z. We have to honor our greats. And this song, I think, musically, religiously, lyrically, was a way to honor the hip hop tradition and the tradition of Judaism in song. So we're going to close it out tonight with the world premiere of our new lyric video for Oseh Shalom. If you don't know the words, you can read along on the screen. If you do know the words, feel free to sing along as it plays. Thank you, Rabbi, for joining in tonight. and providing us some really interesting perspective. And also to Matt, you guys have spearheaded, along with Ollie Richardson, spearheaded this fellowship and this program. And along with Jewish Federation of Greater Metro West New Jersey, none of this would be possible. So big thanks to y'all for joining in tonight. Happy holidays, happy New Year, l'chaim.
L'chaim.
Shalom Bimroma, Booyah, say Shalom Aleinu, Me'al Kol Yisrael, Bimru, Amen. Oh, say Shalom Bimroma, Booyah, say Shalom Aleinu, Me'al Kol Yisrael, Bimru, Amen.
Y'all say shalom. 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 Y'all say shalom.
Y'all say shalom, I play Capone. Actually, I'm Maya. Who passing me the lighter? We bout to take you higher. You waiting on Messiah. They hit you with the hezzy. Get on your Hezekiah. Till heaven is your climbing. The devil wants attention. I dead him off with silence. Though violence is cathartic, remember your assignment. Recorded on papyrus. They cannot ignore it, not even in the slightest. Talking about a blockchain, these tokens came from Titus. Before there was a pilot, we was flying on Osiris. Try it.
Sharp swords to prune force, then prune force to tune chords. A higher type of harmony when we know we ain't harming we. Sharp swords to prune force, then prune force to tune chords. A higher type of harmony when we know we ain't harming we. Say Shalom Bimrama, Booyah, say Shalom Aleinu, Me'al Kol Yisrael, Bimru, Amen. Oh, say Shalom Bimrama, Booyah, say Shalom Aleinu, Me'al Kol Yisrael, Bimru, Amen.
Y'all say shalom. 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 Y'all say shalom.
One day we'll peace out, go fishing with Trump and Hillary Clinton. Eye to eye, fist to fist, no fist cuffs, only fist bumps. We need to talk it out. Alphabet text, introduce yourself. A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H, I, hi, H, I.
One day we could just listen to what the artist has written. Smidgens the hardest renditions of where the pain lies. One day we'll embrace differences, cause that type of division feels like an ending, but really it's just a gray sky. And it hardly ever rains on the west side, but I'm rocking with the gang out of Best Eye. Trying to unify, strive to the next high. Gotta get by with a head high and set the example. I know the fight that's a hand is a handful. Let's settle down, get around. With my brother MC and we don't mean no Rambo. Hip hop is a sample of the feeling a piece of projects from the core. Let us dismantle the systems that keep us attached to the floor. Ain't back in the war. I throw two fingers up to the Shemesh. Stick to my moral ground, that's how I stay sound without no regrets. I got the best love and I'm spreading it far as it gets. And I tell you to bless up, cause reality hard as a desk. So when I'm starting to fret, gotta let anxiety get away. Cause I know larger the stress, the larger the bet, there's gotta be better days. Oh say
Shalom Bimrama, Booyah, say Shalom Aleinu, Me'al Kol Yisrael, Bimru, Amen. Oh say Shalom Bimrama, Booyah, say Shalom Aleinu, Me'al Kol Yisrael, Bimru, Amen.
Y'all say shalom. 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 Y'all say shalom.
So I'm gonna leave you guys with a funny anecdote. Was driving with some of my family yesterday, and we were listening to a pop rock radio station, and they were basically playing Christmas songs from all these famous musical artists over the years. Some, I'd say, out of the list were Jewish, and they asked me. They said, does everybody make Christmas music? Does everybody make a Christmas album? And I had to do the voice of the A&R guy, right? Like, hey, guy, you come to the studio, you make this Christmas record, you're going to make a lot of money. You know what I mean? And the joke was that I myself, Digital Crates, the hip hop Rebbe, I've also made a Christmas album at one point.
There we go.
So I'm going to play us out with a little Christmas music that I produced about 7 years ago.
Awesome.
We don't make too much money off streams these days, but I did put out some Christmas music and the streams went through the roof. So I'm
There
gonna
you
let this
go.
play. I'm gonna let this play. It's an instrumental. If you guys got some bars to jump on, man, go for it. If the spirit moves you.
Can I just say my wife loves Christmas music. It's all that's been on for the
I
past
love it
month.
too. I love
It's
it
great. It's like, yeah, it really is a special genre. As a songwriter, it's hard not to be compelled to like
Now
try,
just look at this image. I mixed Little Drummer Boy and Jingle Bell Rock together,
yeah.
and look at the bag. You know what I mean? Like, come on.
Bro, this is like Rappers and Rabbis, but like rappers and priests, And our next fellowship does have, it's majority Jewish, but it'll be nice that we have, a couple people who are Christian, a couple people who are Muslim, so. Wow, just a whole bunch of beats. You remix classic Christmas songs? Oh my God.
Hey guy, you want to make some money? You make a Christmas album.
There you go. Wow. I'll try to rap. Even with my eyes show, my lies show. Hard not to go to the melody. I'll just start singing. I'll just vocalize the melody. Even with my eyes low, my shine show. Wise guy's eyes closed, respecting what my mind know. My reach is like a newborn, I'm grabbing at everything. Getting mad, rich, take it back from the savages. Sabbath is past, but it's not ash to ash. No, it's what to what, and it's task to task. Yeah, life is to act with more secrets than Jesus knew. It doesn't matter what you think, it only matters what you do. I'm tired these days, I'm getting up earlier. My eyes carry baggage, my Jew froze earlier. The patch on my pants for the lack of the cabbage is a problem I'm working on solving.
Oh, happy holidays from us to
right.
y'all. Peace and love. Happy New Year. Whatever it is that you do into this new year, do it with, gusto. I say go hard. You know what I mean? We've all been through a lot as a people the last few years. So if I could give any advice to anybody that's tuning in, to live your life with lots of love and go into this new year with a very positive attitude. I think that's the best that any of us could do.
Amen.
Word up.
Amen. All right, y'all. Peace. We're out.
Peace, Grace. Peace, Adam. Peace,
All
food.
right.
Peace, Hanya.